That's why so many Bitcoiners do awaken, because it is aligned with the truth. It's a frequency. It is a journey of awakening. It is a journey of healing. They're not afraid of Bitcoin because they know what it is. They are because they don't understand it. They are so afraid to see the truth. It's almost like a survival mechanism. Like, I do not want to hear that. That is going to make everything I am doing crumble to the ground. And I'm not ready for that. The media and these organizations don't want people to understand these things because they are liberating. All of these other ways can help us heal, but until the money is healed, we're all cooked. It's the foundation. Bitcoin is a miracle. I can't see it any other way because it's the biggest course correction on the planet at this time. You don't have to change the system from inside of the system. You create a new system. We don't need to fix an insane mind to become sane. We just have to build those new foundations, those new systems of sanity to become sane.
Today on The Signal, I'm joined by HypnoHeather, a hypnotherapist and holistic health specialist with over 20 years of experience and the host and producer of the UnHypnotized Podcast. She's helping people break free from the global hypnosis of the Fiat world, guiding them to remember who they really are, reconnect with their body's wisdom, and rise into sovereignty. Heather, it's an absolute honor to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I was super excited to find your content, and I resonated very deeply with a lot of the stuff that you're putting out there. And one of the things that struck me is your awakening that you had before Bitcoin, because for me, Bitcoin was really the tip of the iceberg for me that kind of led to these other epiphanies. But it sounds like you had already been on this awakening journey, and then when you found Bitcoin, it just brought you even further into alignment. So can you share a little bit about your awakening journey and how it looked before Bitcoin, and then how Bitcoin ended up taking it to the next level?
Definitely. It's like I heard on a space yesterday on X about someone saying how healthy people find Bitcoin and then Bitcoin makes people healthy. Like it's like a circle, and people come into that circle at different points. And I definitely came in, post awakening, we could say. And I think that's why once I got it, I knew about Bitcoin way too long ago. I won't even say because I didn't know. Even like someone close to my son's daycare provider wrote a Bitcoin book and gave it to me in 2016 or something. And I was just like, didn't even read it. But once I really understood it, which was probably about 3-4 years ago now, I couldn't unsee it. And I think that's what happens. It's whenever we awaken to something, we have that raise of consciousness, and then we can't unsee what we saw. And then everything that I've learned and read and even written about to deepen my own understanding of Bitcoin has just fed that truth that I saw. And I think it's the same as awakening. I think that's why so many Bitcoiners do find God and do awaken, because it is aligned with the truth. It's a frequency. And so my journey is just that. Once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. And now as I keep going, and I'm still a little in between worlds, but more and more, especially with everything that's happening now with the transits and like the collective consciousness, I just don't really want to talk about anything that's not related to Bitcoin.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. And when I was talking to your friend Holly Berkeley yesterday, she helped me put things into perspective, because Bitcoin was what led me down this rabbit hole and opened up this entire new way of thinking. I placed a lot of significance on Bitcoin, but Holly made me realize that Bitcoin is just one piece of this whole global transformation that we're undergoing. And it hits on what you said. It's about bringing things into awareness that aren't working for our society and aren't working for us as individuals, and bringing that to the surface so that we can really evaluate whether those things still serve us, and whether there's a better way to do things. And with Bitcoin, you're right. It's all about resonating at that frequency of truth. And this whole movement is about aligning with that frequency. And that's why I think Bitcoin extends so well into all other areas of your life, including health. And it sounds like you've got this journey with your health. You were dealing with, I think, asthma and eczema, and the traditional medical system just failed you. Because what I've realized, even as a doctor, I've been working as a doctor for 15 years, the medical treatments aren't aligned with truth. We're so heavily based on pharmaceuticals, and pharmaceuticals are synthetic and not natural. So by definition, that's not truth. So you had to find your own truth. Can you talk about your health journey and navigating to truth to actually heal yourself and your health?
Yeah, it was really apparent during COVID because it just made a lot of sense to me. Like when people would question why I wouldn't put a pharmaceutical into my body to make me healthier, I just thought, wow, have you not seen what I've been doing the last like 13 some years to be healthy? And one of the thoughts that always came to my mind was, oh, obviously that person has never had to heal themselves. Because once you're in a position where you basically have to heal yourself or just surrender to unhealth or death, you've got to look outside of the system. And so for me, I was a whole lifetime of those types of illnesses. And at one point I even had a near-death experience. I stopped breathing because of the asthma, and I was on so much medication. It was just, now I can see it so much differently than when I was 12. But I can see how I was destined to be on this path and heal myself and then help heal others. And I think that's an important point to make, because when we're talking about, there's a lot of different things that are awakening in our consciousness and in our awareness of like evolution right now. I think Bitcoin is different though in some aspects, but it is alike because it is a solution. Because I think it's all great to talk about the problem. People are talking about their poor health conditions, their diagnoses all the time. But for me, I like to offer a solution, which is how I got into hypnotherapy and training and coaching and all that, because it's one thing to identify the problem, but it's another thing to have a solution to that problem. And so for me, as I was going, I think my healing journey was about 12 years before I became a hypnotherapist and started helping others. And I knew that whole time that I would be somehow putting this knowledge to use to help others as I was healing myself. I just didn't know exactly. And I didn't have as much of a struggle with the Western allopathic medical system as some people, because I just didn't have confidence in it from the get. So I didn't go through all the hoops, just, no, this isn't true. This isn't right. I'll search and seek out a better way. And even to this day, when people say, oh, what did you do? Or someone DM'd me the other day when I was talking about, I responded to a post about having asthma and eczema and healing it to myself. And they said, oh, I want to heal my asthma. How did you do it? And usually my answer is, let me tell you about the last 25 years, because that's also very similar to Bitcoin. It is a journey of awakening. It is a journey of healing. It is the very opposite of a quick fix. Along that way, I would find something new. Oh, coffee enemas. Or I would find, oh, you can just take these fish oils. Or someone would say, oh, you use this. And I would be like, okay, here's the answer. And I would do it. And oftentimes it would get worse because it was such a detoxing, such a healing reaction, especially when I did larger, more impactful, complex protocols. And none of it was ever the answer. Nothing was ever the quick fix. It was so many things, so many layers. So I think it also really preps you for a low time preference type of way of looking at solutions and looking at alignment.
Yeah, that's powerful. Thank you for sharing your story. And I'm really fascinated by this connection between Bitcoin and the fiat system and the effects on our health. And you alluded to this in one of your spaces where you were talking about how the fiat basically equals a very fast pace. And when we're forced into this fast pace, it's disconnecting us from our body's wisdom. So can you expand on how the fiat system kind of conditions people to override our body's signals and how that leads to this normalization of chronic illness?
Ooh, what a great summary and a great way to ask that.
Yeah,
I see your skills.
when you talked about it, it just hit something deep in me because there's just this intuitive knowing that the fiat system is just destroying our health physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And I love that you're opening up that conversation.
Yeah, that is a very important conversation because I think it's not very clearly illuminated that is contributing greatly to disease. And even with those of us that really work hard to be healthy, we have to work harder than ever to be healthy, spend more of our own fiat than ever to combat the repercussions that just come with living in this like fast, high pace. We could call it hustle culture, but it's actually become like normal to just carry on and keep going even when your body is screaming stop. And one of the examples that I saw in my work, just working with so many women and moms, and one of the narratives that I think is a result of fiat culture and the fiat system is when the woman will say, I just took an over-the-counter cold medication because my son still had to get to his hockey, or I still had so much to do, plus go to work, and they need me there. And there was like this real layered belief system that I need to take something to suppress my symptoms so I can keep going. And if we look, really, what other reason are we suppressing all these symptoms? And you're a doctor, right? Will come in and people are like wanting to suppress their symptoms, but why? If only to keep going. And when we macro back and look at that with a bigger lens, it's what makes the most sense would be to listen to the body, slow down, do what it's needed to care, because then you're not like borrowing time from tomorrow by suppressing the symptom, but then ultimately using your energy, using your limited chi to keep doing things that are they really contributing to a savings account of energy or a savings account of health? And so that's how I started to see it really. I started to really connect the dots. I always saw that with energy and I always saw that with debt. But you can hear as I've been saying this, these two things are very, just like we're going into debt to keep going and keep up and get ahead. We're also going into energy debt by keeping on going and trying to keep up. And as this is now very obvious, the problem is that it's become so normal. Like that is normal. Like I know employers get very irritated with people who they think are taking longer to heal because they didn't go to the doctor, but they don't actually know that. And one thing I've noticed is even when the doctor says like, to someone, oh, it'll take about this long for the antibiotics to work or whatever it is. It's actually, that's the normal period that it takes for the body to heal. Unless there's like deeper underlying conditions.
Yeah, I heard you say in the podcast how a shift in consciousness or a change in health can happen in an instant. And I've seen that firsthand with some crazy spontaneous healings, like at a Joe Dispenza retreat, that if I hadn't been there and witnessed it firsthand, I wouldn't believe it. But I can imagine how you've probably seen a lot of these things in your work as a hypnotherapist, where you can just see their whole consciousness shift in an instant. And so doesn't need to be a set amount of time for healing. You can heal yourself in an instant. That concept is so powerful.
Oh, that's such a great point. I love that you brought that up because that is so much a part of the hypnosis of the authoritarian style of fiat and the system. Believe someone outside of yourself, believe the doctor. And I've had to unhypnotize so many people from that, where the doctor says, if you don't do this, you're going to deteriorate. If you don't do this, or you have this much time to live, that's the worst. or this is just going to increasingly get worse if you don't take this medication. And it's just taking people so far away from their innate abilities to heal, but it's also just taking them away from their belief that they can heal. And that is massive, because even though some certain things might seemingly take a similar amount of time, healing is instant, can be instant. Once someone gets something, it shifts, it happens, the release happens, miracles happen every day. And I think that's something we would love to just really affirm in the minds of the listeners and of people worldwide. Like, you can heal. It's not a set amount of time. Sometimes it takes longer. Sometimes it takes a lot less time. But I will say one thing for sure is that it doesn't take all of the work that you think you'll have to do in your mind to do it. Because that's like the biggest limiting belief that I have ever seen across weight loss, getting healthier, healing a chronic condition. So many times we build up in our mind, like, oh, I have to do so much. Like, now I have to learn to be a completely different person and be more organized and food prep. And that's just one example, but we build up like how much work we have to do that we feel overwhelmed. And then how many people just are like, this still isn't going away. I'm just going to go to the doctor and take a pill. But that's really because of a mindset, not like a truth.
Yeah, I love how you are just so tapped into this frequency and how you found Bitcoin and you brought your gifts to Bitcoin with your knowledge of holistic health and hypnotherapy. And you realize just how intricately connected all of these things are. It's so incredible to see people finding Bitcoin and bringing their gifts into the Bitcoin space. And I'm really fascinated by your background in hypnotherapy. And basically, you talk about hypnotherapy as a way to become free from within. And we realize that our subconscious mind is just running on default. And you talked about this idea of how we're essentially living in this massive global hypnosis. And we're brainwashed into thinking that paper that can be printed endlessly has value and that we should slave our precious life force for paper that we attribute value to. If you just take a step back, you realize how that's basically a global trance that we're in. It doesn't make any sense at all. And so hypnotherapy can play a crucial role in snapping people out of this global hypnosis that we're in. So can you talk a little bit about your work and how you're helping people break free from the global hypnosis of the fiat world?
Sure. I'm getting hypnotized by your thing in the background. Just
It's
like,
pretty cool.
I'm very easily hypnotized. So I'm sure it really relaxes your guests. Plus,
Yeah.
yeah, I think I was really used to the fear mongering of hypnosis, which just gave me the chops for the fear mongering of Bitcoin and the hater. There's what would we even call it? It's not like a conspiracy. There's like actively people and corporations that don't want to see Bitcoin thrive. And I really believe that there are people and corporations that don't want people to really understand what is hypnosis. Because one of my friends, he's a stage hypnosis and he was in town and hypnotist, and he was in town and we had lunch the other day, and he was saying how people are even more worried about being hypnotized than before. And when I was coming up into hypnotherapy, I did a lot of library presentations. I went on morning news shows like locally. And all I really did was teach people about what hypnosis really is. I didn't actually have to sell anything. I just had to help inform them. And I think that also blends so seamlessly into Bitcoin, because I really think it's a similar thing. It's like people don't hate Bitcoin and they're not afraid of Bitcoin because they know what it is. They are because they don't understand it. And I think that's been actively created by the media and by these organizations that really don't want people to understand these things, because they are liberating and they are going to create more sovereign people who aren't going to make choices based on triggers by fear or or just insecurity. And with hypnotherapy, when I think about unhypnotizing, because that's where I can't come back from, because once I realize, there's literally no need for me to put someone in hypnosis and tell them how they're going to feel, how they're going to act, what they're going to do. I simply have to align them with their own self, their innate guidance system, and help them have a space to let go, release, shift, see the things that are causing them to be unhealthy, to be unhappy, to be unfree. And they're naturally going to do that. That's like returning to homeostasis. That's returning to natural order. But at the same time, if they're too stuck in like a fight or flight or fawn, or even just a belief structure that life or people or love or money or health is a certain way, they can't really see through the fog. So I think of unhypnotized as really becoming free from something that you've been hypnotized by that is causing you pain or unhappiness, but ultimately unfreedom. Because if you're not free inside, then you're just going to be at the whim of someone else or something else that, that triggers you. And so when I think about unhypnotizing the world, or when I was at the Canadian Bitcoin conference, I had some people come up after and ask me some questions. And one of the main questions I always get is, do you think everyone can be hypnotized? Or do you think I can be hypnotized? I'm not hypnotizable. There's always that question or something like it. And I just say everyone's hypnotized. Yeah, everyone can be hypnotized. Everybody's hypnotized. We're all hypnotized. This is again like some campaign to try to get people afraid of being hypnotized so they don't realize that they are hypnotized. They've been being hypnotized. And sometimes it's just blatantly obvious.
Yeah. Yeah. That's such a powerful concept. And yeah, once you realize how hypnotized we are, it's crazy to look back and think that we were going through life in such a hypnotized state. And it feels so liberating to break free from that. But you also make reference to how scary it is to break free from hypnosis and how painful it is, but how important that is. You talk about this idea of pain as purification. And you also made reference to how a lot of people resist Bitcoin from a place of pain, not because they think it's wrong, but because it's threatening what's unhealed. But underlying your what you were saying was that pain is essential for growth. So and you also talk about how it's important for people to have a safe place to process the painful truths that they're discovering. So can you talk a little bit about healthy ways for people to process the pain as they're starting to come to these realizations?
I feel so seen. It's like you really get my whole jam here. You get you've been picking up what I've been putting down.
Yeah, I resonate deeply with what you're putting out there, and I see how important it is for the world to hear what you're putting out there.
That's so awesome. Maybe you can come on my podcast. I'd like to
I'd love to
ask you some questions for sure. Great. So, yeah, the whole idea of pain, we hear this a lot in Bitcoin too. People will find Bitcoin through pain. I talk a lot about a dark night of the soul, or going through a dark night of the soul, which is where we have maybe our health breaks down, or we get into a lot of debt. Anything that happens in our life that makes us realize like what we've been doing isn't working. And even though consciously or logically in our mind, we knew, stop doing this, don't keep doing this. We just keep doing it. There's a compulsion. And I am really a fan of like cycles happening until they break. That's why I don't think, like you said, everybody is against Bitcoin. I think it creates a lot of resistance. I couldn't even count how many times people signed up, paid for a hypnosis program, and then the day before they're like, oh, I don't think I could do this. I don't think I'm ready. I don't want to do this, because stuff is already starting to come up. They're already starting to be like, oh crap, I'm going to have to
Mhm.
feel some stuff. They're probably already feeling stuff and
Mhm.
seeing stuff. But what they don't understand is like seeing it when we're in this heightened state of the pain just makes it more painful. It's not helping it to process, it's not helping it to release. It can help increase the pain. That's why I'm such a fan of not doing any kind of symptom care, like symptom suppression. I'm fine with helping support or release or just make pain less, but we don't really want to take away the pain because the pain is the message that
Mhm.
there's something wrong.
Mhm.
And so I love that. Like when someone comes to me and they're just like in so much pain, I love that because it's just on the surface, we know we're going to get some progress. Whereas if the pain's been too suppressed or too pushed down or too numbed down, we can still get some progress, but first we got to bring it up. And so I think what's really important here when we're thinking about solutions for people to process and heal and feel through all of these, all of the emotions that come with seeing the truth. It's really important to do that in a space where you're not heightened. Because when we're heightened, we're still looking for an out. Like even for me, if I'm really heightened and I say lay down to do some self hypnosis, or I really like to listen to like shamanism, drumming, and do shamanism journeys in myself, if I come to that and I'm heightened, I can get somewhere, but first I've got to get undone. Like I've got to get relaxed to be able to process. But a lot of the times, what happens is when we stop and we don't have a way to go into more of a parasympathetic space, go into more of a somatic space, go into more of a feeling, perceiving space rather than like a seeing, doing space, then we're still just responding from our pain. Like we're still just like thinking like the solutions or the thoughts or even what we think we need to do is still coming from that very, we could even think of it as like a fiat curated survival mechanism. Like when you feel something bad, do something about it right away instead
Mhm.
of soften into it, feel into it. Even yin yoga or these types of things that like really encourage our stillness, but most importantly, our relaxation so that we can go to where the solutions are. So something like hypnosis or something like lots of people in our community, they'll do like psychedelics or different treatments. But the main thing that I think is important though is knowing what to do in that space or at least having a guide. Because you can go into a relaxed space and for sure see things for yourself. But if you're really going through something that is requiring you to see a lot, process a lot, feel a lot, then I would really recommend having help with that. Because I think if we look at the world and how divided it is, we could look at, generally speaking, people who are very triggered by someone with opposite views of something are reacting from a heightened place. They're so afraid, like they are so afraid to see the truth, or like they have such a like it's almost like a survival mechanism. Like
Mhm.
I do not
Mhm.
want to hear that. That is going to make everything I am doing crumble to the ground, and I'm not ready for that. Well, like not everyone's ready for that, and fair. That is
Mhm.
hard.
Yeah, I can relate to everything you're saying on a personal level too, because when I, since I've had this Bitcoin awakening, it's made me examine myself before, like my fiat self, and seeing all the things that I was doing to avoid feeling pain. And somehow Bitcoin led me to these realizations, and undergoing that journey right now. And it's painful, but it's also very liberating and exciting. But you also talk about how fiat and the debasement of money kind of fuels these coping behaviors, whether it's eating, alcohol, shopping, porn, gambling. And I can see that a lot more clearly now. And can you explain how unsound money makes people move towards these unhealthy ways of coping as opposed to getting into the deeper healing? And why is it that Bitcoin kind of encourages this deeper healing?
I am in the same position as you are. For Bitcoin, I think I was probably going to be one of those practitioners that like awakened and healed myself and then didn't do anything else, just kept telling the same stories. I know a lot of those people in my industry, like they're still telling the same stories of like how they came to their health. And I think I was like maybe in that a bit before Bitcoin, and I've been the same. I'm like, Heather, you still got some stuff you got to clean up. Now
Mhm.
you got to actually face some of your own things again and in a new way, and in a way that is it even more free, in a way that's even more walking the talk, so to speak. So I think you asking me about Bitcoin and how, and the unsound money and the problems that it's creating. And I think that's a fun conversation overall, because sometimes I say you can order a man just like you can order a burger. Like you can really just, you can
Mhm.
literally go on your phone and it's
Mhm.
actually even cheaper than a burger. And that is, if that's not the perfect example of unsound money and like a fiat culture, I don't know what is. Because it's literally like countless things at our fingertips to find like the short form or like the top or like the surface layer of what we're really looking for. Right. Because if we're really looking for love or connection, that's like the man is like a surface layer to that. If we're really looking for nourishment or nutrition, the burger is like the surface layer of that, which it could also be the release. Like I did a lot of work around food cravings and the metaphysical reasons behind them. And
Mhm.
then that's how I just could get rid of any food craving in hypnosis. It was
Mhm.
just fascinating.
Mhm.
I did that with physical conditions too. That's one of my favorite areas to work in, the metaphysical reasons for physical
Mhm.
conditions. And food cravings, they have all sorts of depth to them. There's no coincidence that chocolate is connected in our society to love, because that phenylethylamine that's like produced when we
Mhm.
have chocolate is the same feeling. And so when
Mhm.
we look at those surface level, excuse me, when we look at those surface level things that we're actually naturally as humans craving and desiring, like love, relaxation, even say like the dopamine that we get through scrolling, or that sort of having our mind off of things that we can get from watching TV, or this feeling of success when we buy something. All of these things are very human and an amazing parts of being human. It's just that unsound money and this like way that we've learned to, well, one, just fix the feeling fast, find the solution to the feeling fast. So you want connection, order a man. You want like you're hungry, order a burger. You want a trip, but use your credit card, buy a vacation. We're doing it right. It's just that because of the other reason, which is their money is just losing value by the second. And I do think that subconsciously it is creating like a heightened survival instinct that this is deep. I don't think we really realize this. And I'd like to even explore this more in my writing, but like this innate feeling like just spend this money because it is losing its value by the second. And so if we take that subconsciousness with, again, the normalization of fixing a feeling really quickly, we're here where we are, where we can literally in any moment of any day avoid, suppress, satisfy any feeling with a multitude of choices around us. Like there's no shortage of ways that we could choose to numb, have a quick fix, avoid something. And so then that's why I say again, we have to be stronger and more courageous and more committed than ever to our health nowadays, because we're like constantly
Mhm.
bombarded with ways to avoid it or have a quick fix. And I think that Bitcoin, the energy of Bitcoin, the frequency of Bitcoin, the soundness of Bitcoin is what we're both talking about here, you and I, of how like we're on another level of having to go through our stuff and clean up our lives because of Bitcoin, because I do think that while all of these ways that humanity can heal, I actually think that Bitcoin is different, because I think that Bitcoin is at the foundation of humanity. I think that all of these other ways can help us heal, but until the money is healed, we're all cooked. It's the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And from now, that's why we have to be stronger and healthier and more focused than ever, because we're combating so much in a system that's just constantly attacking our health. And I don't even use these words. I never use words like combat, attack, fight. But this is not me. I'm like usually just do you, cool, do you. I am not a very confrontational person. But it's just crazy how much awareness we have to not get poisoned on a regular basis and then have to clean out the poison that we took in knowingly or unknowingly. Whether that's physically, psychologically, emotionally.
Yeah, it's interesting that you're saying you rarely use these words like attack, because when I was talking to Holly yesterday, I think I was talking about this being a spiritual battle. And Holly corrected me and said, and made me realize it's not really good to think about things in terms of battle or attacks. This is just the way it is and it's unfolding, and just being aware is a better mindset to be in. Because if you label it like attack or battle, you're giving energy to the other side of it. So I saw that perspective, and that was pretty profound. But on another level, it is this spiritual battle that we're in, and we are under attack. But I just wanted to highlight what you said, because it was so profound about how our society is all about wanting to fix things immediately. And I can see that in myself, just wanting to fix things immediately. But as part of this healing work, it's showing me how powerful it is to not fix things immediately and let your soul feel what it wants to feel, because our souls are so powerful and they have so much wisdom. And you just made me realize what the source of the problem is. We're suppressing our soul's wisdom. When you can just order the man or order the woman or order the food, you're suppressing the wisdom that your soul is trying to tell you by causing you to be uncomfortable. And if we sit in that uncomfortable feeling, it'll guide us in the right way. And that kind of leads into my next question. And it touches on what you just finished saying about how Bitcoin really is this incredibly powerful technology. You actually called it a miracle. Bitcoin is a miracle. It's this incredibly high vibrational technology. And then it was really interesting what you said, because people have these thoughts about miracles and they think it's just fantasy. But a miracle really is just a course correction. And what is Bitcoin if not the ultimate course correction for humanity? At least the way that you and I see it. Can you expand on that idea a little bit?
Yes, definitely. I think that as we go through that dark night of the soul, so to speak, or we really hear the soul, because that's what it is. It's life's throwing you into a pain or a problem that seems unsurmountable, because you got to listen to your soul. Like your soul is, come on. And especially when all of these things can eat at our soul or help disconnect us. So I think that, and ultimately knowing that is the way to the light, like the way to is through. And that does take us right to miracles, because when we start to feel that overwhelm or just the discomfort that, oh, I wasn't really on the right path, like that wasn't really, that got me to a place of less health and wealth than I thought it was going to, or that relationship actually taught me a lot, but it's not where I want to go. And I think as soon as we have that realization that is a calling from our soul, like there's more, you're alive, live, do not slave yourself for something that you are not feeling called to do, even if on paper it looks perfect. that then it can be very overwhelming. And then we start to go, how do I get myself out of this mess? And then the logical, analytical mind comes in, makes it more of a mess of it, trying to figure out the how. And that's where we got to just come in and remember that miracles happen. And I love the Course in Miracles. And I love the Course in Miracles course from Marianne Williamson. I love Marianne Williamson, The Return to Love. There's so much wisdom in that because it reminds us that we are greater than these physical bodies and we are here to live and love and contribute and connect. And if we think of a miracle as the Course in Miracles does, which is a course correction, we can see that, again, of course, that's going to happen because it's reverting to natural order. It's not having to create something new. It's actually having to come back to. We could say remember, we could say align. There's lots of different words for that. But ultimately, it's not that I was going to say it's not like that that Jesus has to come and do a miracle, but it is divine. It really is divine. And I think when we come back to Bitcoin and how Bitcoin is a miracle, like I can't see it any other way because it's the biggest course correction on the planet at this time. And it is driving, like it is the chariot driving into the future, just getting more people behind it because of that. Because we could think about, say from 2020 to 2023, there was a major course correction in life. That was a major miracle, in my opinion, because it got people more online, like people that were hesitant to be online. Like I moved my business online in 2020. And before that, I tell people, like, you don't have to drive 4 hours to do your session. We can do it like this. I'm highly practiced in it. I can still tap into what you need. And that got people more connected globally with like-minded people, with like people that were helping them feel strong, standing up to authority all around the world. Plus, it really awakened people, like people who weren't, like before that, people were still vaccinating their children and they weren't really awakened to the fact that could cause harm too. And that woke up so many people to all potential harms of vaccinations, not just the COVID vaccination. So that was a major course correction. So many people woke up at that time, which was awesome. That was awesome. And so things are going to keep happening like that. Like we're evolving, awakening is going to happen. But again, if we're coming back to Bitcoin and thinking about what is the root cause of our problems as a society, it goes beyond the fact that, say, too many people are on too many pharmaceuticals, or too many people are eating too much shitty food, or too many people are not going outside enough or on a screen. We can really look at, okay, who prints the money, who gives the money, who funds the corporations, who funds the pharmaceutical companies, who funds the genetically modified food organizations, who funds the approval, the FDA, or who funds, who approves what foods, who funds the media, who funds the information, who funds the websites, who funds the, like we could go on and on, who funds everything. And if they can keep printing money, which we're going to call unsound money, if they're going to keep printing money so that they can either keep it for themselves to get richer, or put it towards initiatives that make them richer, or put it towards initiatives that make them richer. I don't know what else there is, but put it to initiatives that make it seem like it's for the health and wealth of the people, but really it's not. Then the money is the root cause problem. Like it just is. And I'm a fan of root cause. Like I'm a regression hypnotist. I can go to root cause. And I did it the other day in 5 minutes just because I saw she was in the space and I just went to it.
Oh.
Like like I've been a regression hypnotist since 2011. And so I'm a fan of root cause. Like I really see the benefit of healing root cause. And the first thing of healing root cause is seeing the truth. And I think as much as we could have all these modalities and all these ways to heal and all these ways to get it aligned, which are awesome, until we fix the money, we do have to just do our best in it and do our best to be on the right team in terms of what kind of future we want for our world and for our children and for humanity.
Yeah, I love how you're tying that all together. And yeah, money is the root of all these bad things that we're seeing. And before Bitcoin, there really was no way to course correct that. And Bitcoin just brilliantly pieced together all these different things and allows for this non-violent way to combat this terrible system that we've ended up in. And I love how you talk about it as a miracle. And can you talk a little bit about that miracle and where you think it might have come from? Because I think a lot about how the reality that we live in, it's only 0.001% physical. The other 99.999% is these energies, frequencies, and vibrations. And Bitcoin essentially lives in these other realms, like the informational realm or the digital realm. So it's not in the physical realm, yet it's able to exert influence on the physical realm through the mining process and the conversion of energy. And it's so brilliant the way it's designed. So it's almost as if it comes from a different realm, like a spiritual realm, like almost not of the physical world. Do you think about things like that, like the origin of Bitcoin and where it might have come from?
Oh yeah. That's all I think about.
Yeah. And
It's my favorite realm.
yeah, it ties into this talk that you gave. I would love to see your talk. I just know that you did this talk on how Bitcoin is a portal to higher consciousness. And I've recently gotten into the consciousness rabbit hole and asking the question, who am I? And realizing that you're actually the witness behind your thoughts. You're not your thoughts. I think this is all connected. So can you expand on these ideas?
Yeah, that was so fun to bring that to the conference. And I got really great feedback from that. We're very excited to have consciousness come into the conversation. And one thing I started with at that talk was just understanding what is consciousness. Because I think just bringing that word in, there is different ways we could use it. So I started to think of it as consciousness is just the awareness that we are here, we hear things, we see things, we touch things, we feel things. And then higher consciousness is the awareness of the awareness. So higher consciousness is like in the storm at a window looking at the storm. You're not just in it or aware that you're in it. So when we're in an awareness of anything, that starts to lift our consciousness. And the benefit of having your consciousness raise is that once you see something, your consciousness rises, you become aware of something, and then you just automatically do things differently. So I'll preface this by saying one thing I realized when I didn't need to really hypnotize people anymore.
So your audio kind of cut out.
Is it back now?
Yeah, it's back now.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So I think I was saying, like, I'll preface this, but just by saying, once I realized when I didn't need to hypnotize people anymore, and I could just guide them to seeing what they needed to see, potentially validate it, see it, become aware of it, and feel it. Just that happens automatically when they become aware of it. Then the automatic response the next day, they would message me and say, oh my God, like I haven't even thought about doing this habit, or I totally am not doing this. Or a week later or 2 weeks later, like that the habit or the change that they were seeking just happened. Like it manifested physically once it happened psychologically, or we could even say psychically, right? And so when we think about, I don't know where Bitcoin comes from. My first response would be God, obviously, like it's a miracle. But God is also all of us and everything that we're here to do and uplift and build and bring. So people can think of all these reasons why it came in, but it truly came in as a necessity. It came in as a necessity to the structure because things can only keep going. Cycles can only last for so long until they need to break. And so when we think about consciousness and even spirituality and this way that it's so much easier to just tap into energy or something bigger than us or higher than us to change than it is to close off to that channel, to close off. And I guess maybe the cost of that sort of, I think of it as a leap of consciousness. That's what I talked about in my talk is like people try to create change by being like, okay, I've got to do this and then this. People think of like habit building and change as like very linear. Whereas like when we just have that leap of consciousness, like it's vertical and that's what we were talking about earlier, right? Just like instant change, it's vertical. Now we're just functioning from a different reality. If you saw pictures of me when I was like doing my hypnosis training, I look like a totally different person. I feel like I've had so many versions of myself. That feels like another lifetime for real. And so when we have these leaps of consciousness, we don't have to. We can say, no, I don't want that. I need to work hard and try to figure this out on my own. But ultimately the cost of having that extra energy to like exponential growth, we could say, is the cost of having to listen to yourself and feel your pain. But also that humanizes us, like that helps us be human and realize like we all have our things that we're going through, and it's not like we're not better or worse than someone else. We just also have to face things at this level.
And everything you're saying is filled with so much wisdom. I just wanted to bring up something you had said in the spaces. You said, let the frequency of Bitcoin highlight where we could be more free or healthy. Feel the discomfort, see the truth, and release it. Such a profound statement. Can you expand on that a little bit?
It's very interesting because I've been moving all of my coursework from Kajabi to school because I'm creating a membership in school called Proof of Mind. And I had to just bring the hypno stuff to the Bitcoin stuff. Like I have no other choice. I can't go back and do that. And I wanted to find a better platform. So I've been looking through a lot of my content. I have an 8-week video course. There's tons of videos I recorded. And even then, I have that wisdom in thought, mind, and consciousness, bringing that to the work. But as I've been going through it, I can see how much, like, I'm just thinking of what I'm wanting to say with this because it's, okay, remind me of the question though that you asked me.
It was basically just, I was admiring this quote that you had about letting Bitcoin kind of highlight where you could be more free or healthy and actually feel the discomfort, see the truth, and release it. And then you close out by saying, go where the love is. I just thought that was really a deep way to end it. Go where the love is.
Yeah. So the reason I brought up my work is like I was looking back and that's something that came from that, which is like from probably when I started training people in 2014, instead of giving them like, here's a script for each condition, because that's again this kind of fiat way of working with someone's problem. It's here's the symptom, here's the hypnosis script. So even back then, when I was training people, I developed my own protocol, which was basically see, feel, and release. Because once you can see something, let yourself feel the discomfort, let it go, you have healed ultimately. And so in that process, there's just a lot of things that fall away, right? Like people fall away, friends fall away, family falls away, in a sense of like maybe a deeper connection or someone that you once resonated with, or someone that, because you start to realize that you're maybe putting up with things that aren't coming from a place of love, right? So when I say go where the love is, it's like, why hang around someone or something that is just hating on you? That's really hating on you. That's always, it's one thing for us to challenge each other. It's another thing to always be challenged by someone, or always have someone coming at you or criticizing you, or doing a job where you just feel like your talents are being either wasted or drained. I'd love to do like a whole episode on just energy vampires. But that's where that comes from, which is it's becomes obvious, I think, especially once your tuning fork is aligned with Bitcoin, that it's really painful for your freedom and your soul to just stick it out and stay in situations that aren't where the love is. Like, you're getting no love. And I don't think that we need to like be appreciated for everything we do. I think we need to do things out of our own desire, not for appreciation. But ultimately, like, if I think that there is this cultural hypnosis of stick it out or stay with it. And if that's true, say, I didn't buy this like new bed frame that I wanted because I just wanted to stack while Bitcoin is on sale. That is one thing, because it's like you're doing it towards a goal. But if you're just staying in it because you're used to like the abuse, and you're used to sticking through like the just being like unloved or not treated well, then I think that's where we have to really again reevaluate.
Yeah, that leads perfectly into my next question, where you said boundaries aren't walls, they're clarity. And this is something that I'm struggling with right now with some personal relationships. This Bitcoin awakening has triggered changes in relationships, like you mentioned. So, what role do boundaries play in becoming sovereign, emotionally, financially, and spiritually? And when you say go where the love is, how do you see sovereignty and love coexisting?
Oh, this is one of my favorite topics. I think I need your notes, because that's pretty much like the exact book that I'm writing right now. Like all the
Mm.
notes that you gave me of my own things that I said.
Yeah, I'm happy to send over what I've got here.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I need this transcript. I need these notes for my book writing
Yeah.
group.
Yeah, I'll send you over the transcript too. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Because I've been working, I really thought I was gonna write a hypnosis book, but now I'm writing a Bitcoin book because it's the same thing at this point. But love and boundaries, this is something so huge. And like you said, I'm happy for you. That's amazing that just the energy of Bitcoin is causing everything else in your life that's out of alignment to be very clear. And I can tell a little personal story that I
Yeah.
haven't shared
Yeah,
yet.
let's hear it. I love it. Love to hear it.
Okay. I am going to share it on as I wrap up my season 2 of my podcast, which was Bitcoin dating in a fiat world. So I haven't really shared sort of everything that I experienced, but I was dating someone, and is a total sovereign individual and not a Bitcoiner. And it just seemed, I kept thinking like, oh, it's actually, you could be like a Bitcoiner without being a Bitcoiner with all these
Mm.
ideals and such. And it was literally like it just was like the perfect man, like in so many ways, just showed me so many things of what I thought was possible, but hadn't experienced yet dating someone, and could like really be in my feminine until like I had boundaries. Like I had to put boundaries for my own health. Like my body would just be like exhausted after, or I'd be feeling all these, like my body was literally like, I know this seems really perfect, but it's not right. And it was such a trip, honestly, because I had considered settling for less before that, even though I guess I really didn't, because I always listened to myself at my own expense. But I had to end it. And it was the most massive lesson in boundaries I ever learned, because it made no sense. It made no sense that I would say no to all of that, except that I knew that there was just something off. There was just something out of alignment where I would feel very drained, or my body sort of conditions in my body would get worse. And actually just completely attribute that to Bitcoin. I'm like, okay, Bitcoin, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for making me have to like choose myself again when I didn't even really want to. I was actually fine. And I think I'm going to write about this more too. So I really like talking about this because I'm even curious. Did you find that too? It just sounded like something that you just couldn't ignore in yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. And I saw it for the first time, really. Whereas before, my whole life, I went through my whole life not seeing it. But I think it goes along with your exactly what you said, the see it, feel it, release it. I hadn't seen it, so I couldn't really, I was just going down unconscious programming. When I saw it, there was just, my body was just telling me, I have to, I can't keep doing what I've been doing.
Yeah.
And it's painful because it's going against a lifetime of who I thought I was, and shaking up a lot of stuff. But
That's how it goes. That's a really great piece that you said, because it's true. Like it does help us to to it reveals these deeper patterns. Like I think of things as karmic patterns, and especially the complex issues. Like some issues I don't see. To me, anything I could just hypnotize away in like 1 to 2 sessions, I don't see as a karmic pattern. But everything else I do, like where I'm just like, oh, this is deep. This is tied to a lifetime. Like even for me, that one boundary and saying no to something that seems so crazy to say no to just broke a whole pattern of like relationships and my dad and dating and my marriage. It's crazy. And then all the people that surfaced in my life after to kind of show me, wow, this was what I was in. And even though I was like aware of it, I couldn't break it. And I guess people listening to this might be like, okay, fine, but like, how did Bitcoin cause that to cause that karmic pattern to break?
I think it's all about this resonating at that frequency of truth, and you feel it on a soul level. So once you start resonating at that frequency of truth, it becomes very clear the things that aren't resonating at that same frequency. And so they just naturally fall off.
I think that's really well said. Because Bitcoin is a solution, right? Because it's whether it becomes the world solution or not, but because it is an actual practical solution, it does create a lot of hope. And so we're not just stuck in like having to face the truth without a solution. Because I think that's where it sucks. I think that's why we have such a divide, because facing the truth without there being a solution, I hated that. I hated seeing all the truth about like every leader sucks, and then higher up than that, we won't even say. And I hated seeing all that because I just felt so powerless. I just felt, what is even the point? And when we have something like Bitcoin to bring us hope because it's a solution, I think it is easier. It becomes easier to face the truth. And then it brings us like a gentler, like we can come to our own having to face truths about ourselves in a gentler way. We're not coming at it with like so much judgment. Maybe.
That idea of Bitcoin not only showing the light on the darkness, but also illuminating the light forward. I've thought about that before, but you just made me connected on an even deeper level, how it, by offering the solution, it gives us the courage to go down that path. Where if there's no solution, that would hinder you from wanting to go down that path. If you know that you're going to see all this bad stuff, but there's no solution at the end, maybe it's appropriate that people protect themselves from going down that path if there's no light at the end and no solution. But because we have Bitcoin with a solution at the end, it gives us the courage to go through all this pain to get there because we see that solution at the end.
100%. Because even just telling people, oh, there's light at the end of the tunnel, or you'll feel better. I definitely did that for years. That's still part of the healing process, in my opinion, of just like helping people believe that they will feel better as a result of feeling worse first, especially when people are trying to come off their birth control or like their SSRIs, or like trying to come off of this sort of whatever, even like eating or screen time, whatever it is, like trying to break the trance, trying to come off of all of this stuff. I think that does help people when they can really believe that they will feel better after feeling worse. And I think with Bitcoin, it's more instant than that almost, especially with the community and like the other people in Bitcoin. Like it's almost, I guess it could be instant in any ways. Because like I always think of Bitcoin as it's a modality in its own way, right? Like it helps people heal just like other modalities too. But I think just knowing that you can see the truth and contribute to something that is creating something new. If we think about the mind, and when we heal the mind, when we're creating new mental blueprints, and as we're creating new mental blueprints, then like the foundation of our mental health is built from a different blueprint. And then the habit of our thinking is created from a different foundation. And so we don't need to go into the mind and fix all these things. Like, I don't even really like when people say, oh, unprogram your mind. I don't love that as like an action. Like, I love that as like an allowing, but I don't really love that as an action, because it's like, you don't actually need to. It's like Jeff Booth says, you don't have to change the system from inside of the system. You create a new system. And that's how I see Bitcoin. And that's also how I see psychological work in 2025, which is like, you don't have to fix and go through all the past and tell all these stories and talk about all this stuff that happened to you, because then you're trying to fix the system from inside of the system instead of create a new blueprint, a new foundation. Keep building the new foundation, keep building the sound mind. You know, I almost called my membership Sound Mind because I think there's a lot of insanity in the world that is caused by the fiat system. It's like insanity. You can literally look and see insanity everywhere. And we don't need to fix an insane mind to become sane. We just have to build those new foundations, those new systems of sanity to become sane.
That's powerful. Your concept of creating a new paradigm that's completely different from the way that we've been doing this psychological work. We don't, because that's the old system, and you're making incremental changes in an old system versus just jumping to this parallel system that's a whole new paradigm at a higher level of consciousness. I love how you make that parallel between Bitcoin and psychology. And we're doing that with every area in the world, medicine, health, and education. It's such a beautiful thing to be alive right now and seeing all this stuff blossoming in society and going through the pain and feeling the hope. And I'm so thankful for this conversation. I just want to thank you for coming on and sharing so much wisdom and sharing personal stories too. It's helped me open up too and start sharing personal stories. And I'm realizing how powerful that is for us to be more personal and authentic and put these stories out there and just show how powerful Bitcoin is in changing you as a person, and how powerful it's going to be in shaping humanity going forward.
100%. And that's a new model, right? That's a new model of being authentic and sharing stories, even as we're leading others to the promised land.
Yeah, it's a completely different model, because we think that we can't be the ones guiding people if we haven't got it all figured out. It's powerful to kind of share your journey, because no one's got it figured out. It's a continual, you'll never get to a point where you've made it. You're always going to be peeling back more layers. And once you get there, you realize there's another layer to get to. So it's
Well,
so,
and that's
yeah,
like a trusted, to me, that's a
yeah,
trusted leader rather than an authority that
mm,
is coming off as perfect. But really, I know we could talk for days. I
yeah,
love
yeah.
this conversation. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what you do next and see how your proof of mind goes. And yeah, yeah, thanks again for coming on today. Very nice to
Thank
meet you.
thank you.
I hope that you enjoyed this episode of The Signal. In a world drowning in noise, signal is everything. Most people are overwhelmed, distracted, and deceived, not because they lack intelligence, but because they've lost the ability to discern what truly matters. But signal cuts through the noise. And Bitcoin is pure signal. It doesn't promise. It doesn't lie. It doesn't bend to opinion or propaganda. It just is. And as the world descends into even more chaos, distraction, and distortion, your ability to identify signal, to recognize what's real, true, and timeless will be one of your greatest assets. So stay sharp, stay sovereign, stay tuned, because here on The Signal, we don't follow trends, we follow truth. I'm Dr. Satoshi, and in a world of noise, we are the signal.